Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. This is the France 24 debate. We're looking at the backlash in Timbuktu after, in part one, viewing the report filed by Yves Irvine and Alexandra Renard for Reporters, the France 24 investigative news magazine. We welcome her back. We also want to welcome back to our discussion Saloum TRAORE of Amnesty International, and also joining us here for part two of our discussion, Niandou TOURE, who's with the University of Paris Descartes. He's a sociologist who is a Timbuktu native. Reminder that it was January 28th when Timbuktu gave a hero's welcome to those French soldiers who were coming into the town. The scenes at the time were those of jubilation that we saw in all the cities as they were liberated. You were saying before the break, Saloum, that the people in Timbuktu of all these different ethnic groups had lived side by side for centuries. So how could these guys get picked up?
Oh, well, I really think that there has been a neglect of the problem of this. Since it began, they should directly try to find a solution. But I think that the authorities left the problem to continue this way, and so that we arrive to this. It's not normal at all.
Yves Irvine, the army, you say, denies that it was involved in the abduction of the people that are missing.
Indeed, directly after being in the neighborhood and meeting the family and hearing the story that men in military fatigues had arrested these people, we went straight to the barracks to try and see them if they were prisoners, to find out what the story was. And both the police and the army there said they had absolutely nothing to do with it, that they weren't even aware of the situation before we came here. However, once they had made sure that our cameras and telephones were well and truly off, we did have one army member look me directly in the eyes and say, well, in any case, absolutely all the Arabs are radical Islamists. And he repeated it even. So, you know, obviously not all the army think this, but it just showed to some extent a certain paranoia that is in Timbuktu within the army and to a certain extent among locals as well.
Back in August, Niandou, you went back to visit your parents. You took a bus, you said, from Bamako and went from the area that at the time was held by the government to the area that at the time was held by the jihadists and their allies. When you arrived back in Timbuktu, did you get a sense that sort of the battle lines were drawn between those that were and those that weren't light-skinned?
Yes, I went to Timbuktu in August, and once I arrived, I remarked that every light skin were somehow obliged or had to be with the occupants, the people who were occupying Timbuktu, because you either are with them or against them. Donc somehow they were supporting these strangers, and some of them were Malians just because they could not behave some other way. And
because of family pressure, because of pressure from their community?
Pressure from the Al-Qaeda for the jihadists, Al-Qaeda for the Islamic Maghreb. Okay, Islamic Maghreb, because Al-Qaeda was occupying Timbuktu, and they thought natural for them to have by their side every people who was light. But once again, I would like to come back to the question of distinction between black and light skin, because in the documentary you showed us the last guy who said that he had been arrested, Lamin, was a black who was teaching in a madrasa. So it is also a matter of Islam and light skin. When you are very close to Islamic schools or Wahhabite groups, you are supposed to be somehow related to the jihadists. So this is one of the questions. Since we are talking about the fact that in these in this area, we have always lived together with Fulani and the Tuareg and Arab populations. There is an atmosphere now of this mistrust that have started since the first rebellions, and we have to overcome it now, and it will be very difficult. As I said during the break, Timbuktu has been taken by Timbuktu people who were Arabs, who went out to discuss with the jihadists, and they came back to control the city and let these occupants get in the city. For all these reasons, it will be very difficult to just think that no one is involved. But we all know that for peace to be built there, we are going to work together between different ethnic groups.
And at one point in the report, in Yves' report, you saw children playing together of different groups. Was that your experience growing up?
This is the way I lived in Timbuktu my entire life before coming in France in 2006. And most of my friends were Tamasheks and Arabs and Fulani and Sonrai. There is no preference. There is no difference. In Mali, we are very close. In the north part, at least, we are very close with these populations. That's why there is a group here that has been formed with northern Malian regions natives who are organizing conferences and debates in order to teach peace, to talk about love and brotherhood between our populations.
And what's the name of the group?
In French, it is called La Coordination des Ressortissants du Nord du Mali.
Okay, so the coalition of people from the north of Mali.
Yes.
Human Rights Watch putting out a long list of recommendations this Thursday in a report which, by the way, mentions by name the three people that we saw in that report. Human Rights Watch, among the recommendations, they saying that government soldiers appear to be targeting members of those different groups. They're saying ensure that those taken into custody are treated humanely, investigate and prosecute. And they talk about establishing a 24-hour telephone hotline staffed by relevant Malian authorities and personnel from the African-led international support mission to Mali for victims and witnesses to report complaints about violations. What do you think of that idea of a hotline number that could be established within Mali? Is that a good idea?
Yeah, it's a good idea, but it's also an idea that can it might be a problem also, because you know that there is a problem of revenge. Some people might take the line and lie, and because they just had some problems with other people. So I think that we want really to know where the jihadists are. Would they want to know where they hide? It's also important that we try to make a kind of discrimination about between the people. We must not just accept people to say, okay, this one is a jihadist, and then run to him and
But I think the idea is not to say this one has been a jihadist necessarily, but also to say, well, watch out because soldiers are doing something bad over here.
Yeah. Okay. I think that
blowing the whistle on misdeeds that are happening now, not before.
Mm-hmm. Well, then in this sense, it's really a very good idea, because you know, when I was in Sevare, that's the problem that we have witnessed. So people were afraid to say what they saw. And we went into some families just in Sevare, where we discovered some bodies and many other things, but they couldn't speak because they were afraid. So this kind of line can really help them to report some of the problems they have seen.
All right, we're joined right now on the line by Joe Penny of the Reuters news agency. He's in the city of Gao, where this Thursday, once again, there's been shooting. He's been a witness to it. Joe, before I talk to you about the topic of reconciliation and possible revenge attacks, first of all, what's the situation right now in Gao? Has the fighting stopped? Can you hear me, Joe Penny in Gao? All right, we'll try to get back to him in a moment. You mentioned the idea of this sort of climate of suspicion that might arouse, or people trying to take advantage of the situation. This Thursday, the Malian foreign minister said there had been 4 or 5 arrests of Malian soldiers suspected of wrongdoings. On Tuesday, Mali's prime minister, Niandou Sissoko, sat down with France 24's Mark Perlman on this very topic.
It is obvious that the army has to be exemplary. The behavior of the army and the security forces must be exemplary.
And if there have been atrocities?
If there have been atrocities, if it's verified, there will of course be sanctions.
But who is going to punish them?
Mali.
Mali, not international justice? For now, you think you can do it?
Yes, we can do it.
Saloum TRAORE, is it realistic to think that right now the Malian justice system can work? I know that those that have been arrested are being shuttled down, be it Islamists or the soldiers are being shuttled down from the north all the way down south to Bamako. Is it realistic to think that right now the Malian justice system can work?
Well, I think it's really realistic to think so, because the Minister of Justice that we had there has been one that I have known a very long time. He has been a human rights fighter, and I'm sure that he's going to do all his best so that there is justice. People who are being brought from the north to Bamako, they are going to be tried, I'm very sure.
Will they get a fair trial?
Yes. I'm sure that if it goes like this, they are going to have a fair trial. And also, after we have issued our report, and I'm not going to say that it is because we have issued this report that the government has taken a step forward, but I think that on the 7th of February, the Prime Minister has convened people to a very big meeting where he reaffirmed the Malian government's decision to abide by human rights and respect people's rights.
IRVINE, the Malian government making these statements and certainly publicly condemning any atrocities, but there is the fact that the government itself is weak. There had been, just before the French intervention, the Prime Minister had been pushed out by the military which had returned to barracks, but which had staged a coup last March. The military in Mali seems to be sort of a difficult partner for the West right now. How much trust can the French put in the Malian army?
Well, what choice do they have to some extent? I mean, it's going to have to be a team-building process. They're going to have to work together. The French troops that we did meet on the ground are, however, waiting until more international troops come. They say that their role is to train the Malian army, to work with them, to get it up to a force, I guess, like their own. I think there is quite a level of trust on the ground between the two sides. But indeed, as you say, I mean, we had that coup d'etat just last year. Now, the leader of that coup d'etat, Captain Senegal, has stayed very quiet these recent weeks and months, apparently insisting that, you know, control has gone back into the government in Bamako.
Earlier on Tuesday, Sissoko, the Prime Minister, staged a press conference with the French Foreign Minister, who pointed, for his part, to an EU-backed plan to train the Malian army.
There will be extremely clear guidance about the moral conduct the Malian army will need to respect. We have talked with Prime Minister Niandou Sissoko about atrocities. As you know, there have been reports about possible atrocities. Well, the Prime Minister, Sissoko, and I share the same position, which is that such atrocities are unacceptable.
Saloum TRAORE, do you think, I mean, the Malian army has been in training lots of times before. The guy who led that coup had been trained in the United States. Is more training for the Malian army going to solve the problem? Are they going to behave better after they've been trained?
Well, I think that the training that should really be done for the Malian army is not only training of knowing how to use arms and so on. This training should be really a training on human rights, training how they would behave with people. Yesterday I was in Belgium and I met the EU representative of human rights, and he told me that they are going to take some more than 400 people who are going there for training the army, and he put a special point on human rights. I think that this is what they really need. It's not only knowing technically how to use the weapons, but knowing how to deal with the civil population.
Niandou TOURE, when the takeover of the north happened back in March, people initially welcomed the rebels because they said they were fed up with the army and the way the army handled itself. Do you really think that training is going to reform it?
First of all, I don't think that people really welcomed the jihadists in Timbuktu or in Gao. Maybe there were not there has not been fights between populations, local populations, and these guys. But in Timbuktu and Gao, maybe for Kidal also, I'm sure people did not like these people to govern the cities, because even if North Malians were fed up with the government, which did not handle the crisis the way they wanted it to be, they did not condemn it. But to talk about our army's formation, I don't think that it's the fact for these militaries to have been formed by the USA that let them flow to on the other side, because half of our militaries in the north was having a special formation, a special training, and they fled because most of them were Tuaregs or Arabs who felt like they had better thing to do with the jihadists. And as said Mr. Traoré, I think that it is mainly we have to focus this training on a matter of knowing, for them to know civil rights and
more of an accent on civil rights. And of course, we'll be watching how the national reconciliation process unfolds in the coming months. Niandou TOURE, I want to thank you. I want to thank Saloum Traoré. Yves Irvine, you can see her report on France24.com or in Reporters, the France 24 investigative magazine. That's it for the debate for today. Thanks for watching.